Alrighty, so today we are going to talk about teams that is struggling right now in the league, and specifically, we're going to look at all the teams that is currently below the red line and teams that are just kind of straddling above the red line right now, and kind of talk about whether or not if they can salvage their season, or are these teams that are kind of like what their fan base are feeling about them in the early part of the season, and that is we're done. After 8 games of the season, or 7 game of the season for some of these teams, we're pretty much done, and there's no hope that we can come back and make the playoffs this season. So we start off with the Eastern Conference, and the first team I talk about, probably that kind of fan base, because if you talk to any Montreal fans, yeah, it feels like this is a team that is going through the beginning of potentially ripping out every pieces that they have of the core that they built last season and pretty much start all over again because after the Kamal Miller trading their best defender really just for peanuts on the dollar and didn't get much in return. In fact, they even send general allocation money to Inter Miami because of that, and we already know about how they lose a couple of their best player because they sell them off a profit. Yeah, things are definitely looking dire for this Montreal side. And, also talking about who exactly is going to be a head coach that could be the first to be fired this season. I say it could be Hernan Lasada because, it's unfortunate what's happened with him with Montreal, where it was pretty clear that he's trying to use the same system that he used with DC United. But unlike the time when he was with DC United, where at least he kind of had decent enough quality to do it well. It's just not been the case for this Montreal team. It has just not worked whatsoever, and it's getting to a point where, yeah, it's just been a disastrous start of the season. 1-0-6 with only 3 points, only 3 goals that they have scored this season, which is by far the fewest in the Eastern Conference. But surprisingly, it's actually not the fewest in the league, and we'll definitely get to that certain team that currently has the fewest goal in a very historically bad drought to start the season in terms of goal scoring, but they also have given up the most goals. 17 goals giving up this season with a minus 14 goal differential. That is by far the worst in the league. So, yeah, again, there's really not much hope. And it's sad to see because, we knew that this team was going through a regression. We didn't know that this was as bad as the regression to the point where they are literally in a wooden spoon kind of type of team because of it. Unless if they decided to maybe, I mean, again, in this situation, I feel like they're probably just gonna sell off some of their best player in the summer transfer window. There's some guys that have high upside. They're trying to force their way out. They don't want to be part of a team that it is currently a disastrous class right now. It feels like Montreal might be heading toward a rebuild because of it. Then we get to Charlotte FC, who currently have a 1-3-4 record and only have 6 points. They scored 9 goals while giving up 16 goals and have a goal differential of -7. And for Charlotte, this was supposed to be a team that was maybe going to be like Austin last season, where the first season they showed some promise, and then the second season they will carry that promise and be a playoff team. Yeah, it's safe to say that it has not worked out. And I mean, it's just been a disastrous class for Charlotte. I mean, all the praise that we talked about Christian Latencio last season, it just have not been there this year. And it's weird to see that it hasn't been there because when you look at the Charlotte team, you can kind of say that they upgrade from last season. I mean, they have a decent number 9 in Enzo Capetti, but he's not scoring at the rate that they were hoping for. And a lot of those players that kind of overachieved last season, it feels like either they have gone back down to earth or the fact that they have kind of underachieved. I mean, the only guy that I can say that kind of live up to his potentials in some sort is Kamil Jozwiak. And when Kamil Jozwiak is the guy that is kind of reaching your potential, then you have some serious problem of this team. So yeah, again, it's been a disastrous start to the season for Charlotte. But like I said, last season it was a disastrous start to the season, albeit it was kind of expected. We'll see whether or not if they can turn it around. Then you get to Inter Miami, and for Inter Miami, remember in the first 2 games when they got off the block to a great start with two wins and 2s and 6 points, and some people are saying, "Oh, is Phil Neville going to work another master class as this team going to be even better than last season. And who needs Messi in terms of coming into this team? Yeah, it's just been a disaster ever since. They are in an absolute free fall right now. Five straight losses, followed by their first two win, and stuck with 6 points. But they haven't given up a lot of goals. Like 8 goals only allowed this season, but also they haven't scored a lot. 6 goals that have scored, and for the most part, Inter Miami. When you look at some of those games that they played, they at least kept it close. But the problem is the fact that yeah, your goal scoring has been an issue with this team. Joseph Martinez, he is just absolutely snake bitten right now. It's hard to believe he still have not got a goal so far for this Inter Miami team. Leo Campana has been hurt most of the time, but I think the death blow for this Inter Miami team has to be when Gregory went down with that injury. Like I think this team has not been the same ever since Gregory went down. I think he's been kind of the guy that was holding the glue because we knew that this team there was the concern with the way that how this team is built and how Phil Neville likes to set up this team that there is definitely going to be question in terms of the defense and the fact that when you have some of even your attacking player not tracking back and literally exposing your defense and asking a lot of that midfield, yeah, that could be a bit of a problem. But and they of course have Gregory. Gregory is a guy that I think is a very underrated number six and a guy that doesn't get give a lot of credit. And once he went down, yeah, that person that he brings was just completely gone. Like you can see teams are finding much more space to uh to attack this Inter Miami side. And I would say that the 8 goals that they conceded, it could have been more if Drake Callender is not playing out his spot. I gotta feel bad for Drake Callender. He is literally he's literally a guy that I think is considered top 10 or even top 5 goalkeeper in this league and keeping this Inter Miami side in most of these games, but he's just basically getting no help in terms of defense. He's getting hung out to dry game in and game out. And yeah, for this Inter Miami side, if they want to come back and need to stop this bleeding, they need to stop this losing streak. And we've seen this before with Inter Miami. They have gone through a long losing streak and eventually they stopped it and they go on a good run. And we'll see whether or not that is going to be the case again. Then we get the New York Red Bulls. And remember how I said that this maybe be the best Red Bulls team that we've seen in 2018, and that we thought Dante Van Zier was the answer in terms of the guy that they've been looking for a long time. To hope that that is the Bradley Wright Phillips replacement that they've been dearly looking for. Yeah, it turns out that of course is not the case. In fact, we know the whole situation with Dante Van Zier. We talked about for a week there, but that's not the only issue. The issue for the Red Bulls in this game is kind of the same issue that TFC has, where they've drawn way too many games so far this season. 1-5 and 2 is the record. So again, they've only lost twice so far this season, which is good, but they've only won once and they've drawn so many games. How many times I've said when you draw games, it's not going to help your cases in terms of getting above the red line. It might get you to still stay afloat and maybe be in the playoff conversation. And this is where I would like to say that for all these teams that are near the red line, it's kind of still not doom and gloom with the way that they're only one win or two wins in a row for them to potentially get themselves above the red line. Like they're only one winning streak away from having a decent start or kind of get themselves back into the playoff picture. And we'll see whether or not that is the case for the Red Bulls, who again goal scoring, it's not a big surprise. It's a huge issue for this team. Again, there's just nobody in this team that can score the goals. 8 points so far this season, score only 6 goals while conceding 7 with a -1 goal differential. Then you get to DC United, and DC United, so far they did get a win in the last game with a 2-2-4 record and have 8 points, but that win was against DC or not DC United, but that win was against Montreal, the worst team in the Eastern Conference, and they didn't look good either in that game too. So yeah, I think for DC, this is kind of where we were expecting them to be. They're going to be a team that I don't think they're going to suck really badly, but they're also going to be a team that's going to have those inconsistency. There's times where they have looked good, and then there's times where they look absolutely horrendous. But they also sit on 8 points and scoring 8 goals while allowing 12 goals with a -4 goal differential. Yeah, safe to say that the defense is been a huge issue for this team, and it was a huge issue last season. The fact that they didn't address that is not a big surprise. How that is once again kind of their Achilles heel. I think the other Achilles heel has to be on the attacking end, where yes, Benteke is scoring goals. It's been very inconsistent in terms of it. And again, inconsistency, I think, is going to be the word that's going to be thrown to DC throughout this season. And I expect this is just going to be how DC is going to look. They're a team that we knew that they were boom and bust coming into this season. The way that Wayne Rooney constructed this team, and we're seeing it right now, where there's times that they have potential, and then there's times that it kind of reminds you why DC finished dead last season and won the wooden spoon. Then we get to the team that just outside the playoff picture. Now, this team is probably the team that I think, out of all the team in the Eastern Conference, this is a team that most likely could make get to the playoffs, and that, of course, is the Philadelphia Union. And in some way, I kind of have to put an asterisk because of the way that, yes, this is a team that is kind of suffering the issue that a lot of MLS teams have to suffer whenever they are also involving in CCL, and especially really committed for the CONCACAF Champions League. They're going to have times where they have to sacrifice some games, and that is kind of the case for the Union with a 2-2-4 record and with 8 points. They scored 10 goals this season while allowing 11 and have a -1 goal differential. Keep in mind there was a couple of games where they did not have their best goalkeeper in Andre Blake in goal. So yeah, that kind of had some issue. And I will also say that the defense it has not been as solid as what we have seen last year. But again, you know, Jim Curtin, he's been kind of battling both competition. He's trying to juggle in terms of making changes to the roster, and also just kind of changing starting 11 game in and game out, just to keep the starting 11 fresh as the season goes along. And yeah, I mean, again, with the way that how this season, because we have that extra playoff spot, because 19 makes it out of the playoffs, and knowing the fact that when you look at the teams in the Eastern Conference, I mean, there are certain teams that I can say that you can see them probably drop off. I think even if the Union is going to struggle, even if they're going to have the issue where we've seen before, where teams go deep into the competition of the CONCACAF Champions League and they get burned out, I do think that they'll still have enough in terms of getting to the playoffs. Similar to what I think LAFC was last season, where, LAFC in some way kind of gone deep a little bit into the tournament, though I think that's kind of a different comparison, because of the fact that LAFC was kind of underachieving, and they didn't really go too deep into the competition until the competition resumed back in December. But yeah, again, for this Union team, I think they're too good to miss the playoffs. And I know I say this to all these teams, like the Seattle Sounders last season, where they missed the playoffs because of that CCL fatigue. But again, I don't think it's going to be the case. I think the Union should have enough to do so. But then again, don't be surprised. Maybe that might be the case. They might maybe suffer the same flaws that the Seattle Sounders had last season. Then we get to the teams that are just above the red line and getting to the extended playoff spot, which is the ninth seed. Currently, TFC, of course, are having this spot, and really the only reason why TFC is in this position is the draws that they have. Again, the draws will help you in terms of keeping yourself in the playoff race, but it does not help you in terms of getting yourself higher in the standings. And right now, TFC, alongside the Red Bulls, are the draw kings of MLS, 1-6-1, and they have 9 points with 10 goals and 9 goals allowed, and have a +1 goal differential. Now, I will say this for TFC. They've been battling some injuries, and the good news is they are going to get Lorenzo Insigne back. And that I will also say that the other thing that has to be encouraging for Bob Bradley's side, the defense hasn't been as bad as what we thought it was. I mean, early in the season it was bad, but it has definitely gone much better. And once you do get some of those attacking pieces back, I think this team can definitely do go on a run. And in some way, they're kind of just nursing it right now. They're just kind of just trying to nurse this injury crisis until some of the guys get healthy, and that they can get a run. And if that's the case, they're doing a good job in terms of it. But again, they need to turn those draws into win. I mean, those draws are not going to help their causes in terms of heading up in the standings. And we'll see once they do get healthy, and if the defense can continue to play well, whether or not those draws are starting to turn into wins for this TFC side. Then we get to the Chicago Fire. And again, it's kind of weird to say that the Chicago Fire is in a playoff spot, but hey, the last couple of games where they have been on a good run kind of got them in that spot. Again, this is the thing about all these teams, and I'm going to say it once we get to the Western Conference, looking at these bad teams. it doesn't take much for them to get themselves in the stand. Like it only takes like even 2 or 3 wins in a row, or heck, even if you go on a bit of an unbeaten run, you can definitely get yourself above the red line, and that's kind of the case for the Fire. I mean, early this season it was doom and gloom, but now they've got themselves self up with a 2-4-1 record and have 10 points. They score 11 goals, while 11 allowing 10 and have a +1 goal differential. Now, obviously, Fire fans will say that, well, we shall see how long this, of course, lasts. And we have seen before where, the Chicago Fire, they'll always follow this kind of pattern where, yeah, it looks like there's going to be some hope that they're going to make the playoffs, and then it just drops. And we'll see whether if that is the case, especially the last game where we saw a very similar Chicago Fire s kind of home games where they went up 2-0, looked like everything was rosy, and then they blow that 2-0 lead in the span of just 3 minutes. But we shall see whether if they can continue this good run. But I think if you look at how the Fire has been playing the last couple of games, there's got to be some positive. I think they have definitely played very well in the last couple of games, albeit yes, they have did some very Chicago Fire-esque kind of things. And consider the fact that they're doing this without Shaqiri. That's even more impressive. So again, I think this team is heading the right direction. It's just that they need to stop the usual things, which is blowing leads at home. Like imagine if they didn't blow those leads at home. Like those 4 draws. Like I think 3 of them was because of the fact that they blow two nothing leads or 2 goals leads. If they didn't blow those, we would have been talking about one of the best team in the Eastern Conference and probably the most surprising team in the Eastern Conference right now. Now we go to the Western Conference, and looking at the West, in the dead last spot of the Western Conference is Sporting KC. I mean, yeah, it's safe to say that this has just been a disastrous season and really just a historic bad season for Sporting KC. Not, I think they're not only off to their worst start since '97, but the same goes with the goal scoring streak. 0-3-5 and have 3 points. Have only scored 2 goals this season. No team in the league has scored that fewer goals coming into the game or the ninth game of the season than what Sporting KC had. They also allow 11 goals with a -9 goal differential. And again, I know you could argue the fact that they've been snake bitten a couple of times, especially in the beginning of the season where they were just repeatedly putting 30 shots in a game, putting double-digit shots on goal, and they always ran into a good goalkeeper. But again, I feel like it's getting to a point where I've said this before and I'll say again. When you basically started to have problem in terms of goal scoring, and a lot of these attackers for Sporting KC is definitely having the case. They're starting to press a little bit too hard, and it started to get in their heads a little bit. And again, there's really no good solution in terms of that unless if they can finally have that one game where they can of course score some goals and really started to look dominant. And I think that game could come in a couple of weeks because I believe we have an early wooden spoon derby in MLS in a couple of weeks where Sporting KC does face against Montreal if both of these teams still sits at the bottom of their respective conference. And that is definitely a game that I think both of these teams would want to win, but especially for Sporting KC. Like if there is one team that they can at least maybe get a chance to win and gets a couple of goals, that of course is the case. Or maybe even in the US Open Cup too. I mean, I know in the US Open Cup they're actually facing against an NPSL team in Tulsa Athletic. Even if they can score goals in that tournament too, it can give the team some confidence that they can build in the league. Because right now, I just think the reason why the team is not scoring goals is that goal scoring drought and the way that the mentality in terms of them just not able to score goals, it is starting to get to them. And this is even when they have some of their best player back, like Johnny Russell and Alan Polito back in this league. This team still cannot score goals because they have that mentality of just they're just absolutely snake bitten right now. But then we get to 13th place, which is the LA Galaxy, and again, you talk about another team that is having a train wreck of a season. I mean, I mentioned many times the Galaxy having problems on and off the field right now with an 0-3-4 record and have 3 points. They scored 5 goals while allowing 12 goals with a -7 goal differential. Now, I will say this about the Galaxy. I thought the last game when they played against LAFC, that was probably the best attacking performance that they had, and it's no surprise that when Chicharito did play in that game, and I believe he went the full 90, it provides the attacking spark. And now that if Chicharito is back in this lineup, I think that should help out this attack a little bit because I think they really miss him in the first couple of games of the season. But again, what will not change is the fact that there's gonna continue to be protests off the field, and that these off the field situation is unfortunate, and it feels like it's started to be a distraction on the pitch too and in the team too. But we'll see whether or not if that of course can change. I mean, if you're a Galaxy fans, you're kind of in conflict right now because on one hand, it's been a disastrous season. You want Chris Klein to be fired. You want Vanny to be fired too. But on the other hand, I mean, you kind of want to suck continue because Chris Klein didn't make that promise. He's gonna step down if this team doesn't make the playoffs. So I mean, if there is a time where we can see a blatant tank job in MLS and a blatant kind of team that just purposely lose games because they want something good to achieve in the future. Maybe we might see it for the Galaxy right now. Then we get to 12th position, and that of course is Real Salt Lake with a 2-0-5 record and have 6 points, and they score 7 goals while allowing 16 goals with a -9 goal differential. And for RSL, I will say this about them: recently they have started to turn things around. I mean, they're kind of the same situation with Inter Miami, where they got off to a decent start of the season with an opening day win, and then after that it was nothing but misery. They went on a losing streak, but again, that game against Charlotte FC when they won 3-1 at home, that was definitely a much needed win for them to really start to stop the bleeding and get out of this losing streak. And even in that loss that they had against FC Dallas, I mean, they play well in that game. Like, it was unfortunate that they just ran into a decent goalkeeper and Martin Paus, and the finishing wasn't there. But there's got to be a lot of positive. You got to say it has to come out of RSL in that one, and that again they're starting to play a little bit better, and and again they're not that far below the red line, which just 2 points, and coming into the next game where they play against a decent team in the San Jose Earthquakes. But again, this is the Quakes. They don't usually get road wins. There could be a case that RSL can carry that momentum that they had in the last two game and start to get things going, because I think this team is definitely underachieving. I mean, I know this team has always lacked that quality, but that's what makes this team good. They really believe and follow the mantra of the team. Of course, is the star, but it doesn't seem like that is the case, at least in the first couple of games, where the attack is definitely underachieving and the defense has just been an absolute mess so far in the beginning of the year too. Then we talk about the Colorado Rapids, and again, this is another team that I think is starting to head in the high, and really this has been the case for the Rapids for the past couple of weeks, that where they are picking up some good result and have really stopped the bleeding that they had in the beginning of the season, where it looked like it was doom and gloom for Robin Fraser team. 1-4-3 is their record. They have 7 points. They have scored 5 goals while allowing 10 goals. I mean, it's not a big surprise. Goal scoring has been problem for this team. I mean, we knew that this was going to be the issue, but obviously I know the 10 goals that they have conceded, it's kind of a little overblown, because 4 of those 10 goals that they conceded was that 4-0 win against Seattle, and again, that was kind of the game, along with a couple of resources that kind of gone against them, that looked like it was doom and gloom for this Rapids team. But give credit, Robin Fraser has really kind of stopped the bleeding, and ever since their first 3 games, where they have given up a total of 6 goals, only give up 4 goals so far this season. And ever since, they have problems in terms of scoring goals in the beginning. They have score goals, 4 goals in since the first 3 games. So the fact that they have scored the same amount of goals and have allowed the same amount of goals with a 0 goal differential in the last couple of games, it just shows you that there are definitely some promise for this Colorado Rapids side. But now again, the goal scoring is definitely going to be something that they're going to have to figure out. I mean, right now it's clear that what Robin Fraser is trying to do is that he's trying to go ultra defensive, just knowing that his team is not going to just kind of open themselves up, because they know that their defense is not good. But now he's going to have to figure out how to get to a point where they can maybe start open themselves up a little bit, and maybe going forward on the attack, and shows that attacking in strength that is going to be a problem this season, but that's something that he's going to look into trying to address heading into these next couple of games. But like I said, the Rapids, there is some promise that this team is heading the right direction. Not so for Austin FC. I mean, Austin, it's been just a disastrous start to the season to a point where they're also having the same issue with goal scoring. 2-2-3 is their record, and they currently have 8 points. They have not got a win ever since they got that road win against RSL back in, I think, week number 4. They scored 6 goals this season while conceding 10 with a -4 goal differential. Again, the defense is something that we mentioned many times that has been a huge issue. But I think the thing that people are kind of forgetting about Austin, and the other issue that they have, is goal scoring is a big issue. Because again, unless your name is not John Gallagher, this team is having problem in terms of putting the ball into the back of the net. And even Sebastian Driussi, a guy that was just so lethal this season, it's been a real struggle for him this season. And along with all these attackers that are just not putting the goals in, and with the amount of talent that they have on the attack, this should not be a team that should be struggling to score goals. And that's going to be something that Josh Wolf's got to figure out, because you can see that maybe there might be. I mean, I don't want to say there's pressure on Josh Wolf, because he did a great job in terms of getting this team all the way to the Western Conference final. But again, the thing about Austin fans is that I can definitely see the fan base, maybe they're a, they taste that success and maybe kind of got a little spoiled of what to come, and that there may be some pressure, the fact, and that especially with the roster that they have, which again, this roster theoretically should be a top four kind of team. The way that they've underachieved, I'm not surprised the fact that maybe Josh will be under a little bit pressure sure, a bit. And that again, this is a team that I think is a classic example of a couple of teams that clearly had some potential to do well this season, or are just clearly underachieving in the early part of the season. Then we go to the Portland Timbers, who, remember how the Portland Timbers was a disastrous class? What a Cascadia Derby win does to this team. Not only getting them a crucial 3 points, but also now getting themselves technically just above the red line. Well, not really technically, but they are above the red line with a 2-2-4 record and have 8 points. They scored 10 goals. Keep in mind, 4 of those did came in the last game, and they conceded 13 with a -3 goal differential. But again, that game against the Sounders, that is exactly what they needed. That is the spark that they needed to really turn around this season. And who knows, this might be it, because again, we've seen it so many times before. Whoever win the Cascadia Derby, that momentum will definitely carry through them for a couple of games, and we might see the case for this Timber side that can really start to rise up in the standings. Then we have the Vancouver Whitecaps, and the Whitecaps is kind of in an interesting situation where they kind of got off to a bad start, but you can start to see that they're started to kind of turn around a little bit. 2-4-2 is their record, and they currently have 10 points. They've scored 11 goals while conceding 7, but they do have a +4 goal differential. And again, they're kind of a team that they're starting to show some promise that this is a team that, after all a bad start, again, under Vanni Sartini, started to figure it out a little bit. And I think a lot of that has to do with when they won 5-0 against Real Español, where I feel like that was the game that really kind of kickstart their season. They just need a game where they not only need to win, but just need a spark to do so. And this is also where I go back to Sporting KC again. I know they're going to be facing against an easy team in that U.S. Open Cup against Tulsa Athletic, and I know Peter Vermes will be very tempted to put his beat team, because you're basically facing against an amateur side. But I do think that it would be best for him to just put his strongest 11 in that game too, because your strongest 11 is definitely lacking confidence in terms of scoring goals and performing well. So why not have a chance to play against an easy team, give them some confidence so that they can build that on once they get into league plays. And we're kind of seeing this with the Whitecaps. Vanni Sartini, in that game against Real España, he definitely put in some of his starters in that game, and it followed with a 5-0 thrashing. Now, did he need to do that? No, he didn't really need to do that in that game, but it definitely has energized the team to a point where, yeah, they have played much better compared to what we saw in the first couple of games. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at all the teams right now that are having a rough start to the season, and kind of seeing which team can get themselves back, bounce back and make it to the playoffs. Like if I want to just kind of quickly talk about some teams that do I think out of all these are gonna make the playoffs. For CF Montreal, nope, they're not. They're probably not gonna come back. For Charlotte, I mean, if they can get that going, and that their defense can stop leaking goals, maybe. But I think it could be a no for them. For Inter Miami, could be interesting to see if they do stop this bleeding, whether or not if they can make to the playoffs. So I'll just kind of put like this, kind of to be determined. The Red Bulls, I think they will recover. I mean, this is just an early, a bad early start to the season. I mean, as long as if they can start to get that goal scoring working, this team should be good. For DC, again, it's a very big map because it's a boom and bust team. The Union, yeah, I think they would could be able to make it to the playoffs. For TFC, same thing. I think they are a team that once they do get some of their attacking talent back, they should be able to make the playoffs. But Chicago is a really big meh. Again, this is the thing about the Fire. Yes, they're on a high right now, but there's been times where it can easily go away from them and they can miss out on the playoffs. Then we go to Sporting KC, and again for Sporting KC, it's a big no because again I think this is the same situation that they found themselves in last season. In fact, I think this was even worse than what we saw last season, and even with a good run that they had in the second half of the season, they just put themselves in too much of a hole, and I feel like they're starting to do that once again. For the Galaxy, I would say it's a no because simply their fan base don't want to see their team make it to the playoff so that they can get rid of Chris Klein. But again, the issue that they have, I just feel like they're in the same situation that we saw with the Portland Timbers last season, where that off the field situation got ugly to a point where it affected the on field product, and it's happening case with the Galaxy. For RSL, yeah, I think RSL could make it. I think they're starting to kind of turn around their season a little bit. For Colorado, it's still a big move because of the offense, and whether or not if Robin Fraser can get that going. For Austin, yeah, I think Austin should be able to. I mean, this team, when you look at the Ross that they have, this team, I just think is too good to miss out on the playoffs. I think Josh Wolf is going to eventually figure it out, and that the quality of this team is eventually going to show up. For the Portland Timbers, yep, I think the Timbers will make it to the playoffs despite having this bad start. Again, that Cascadia Derby win. I think it will be interesting to see how much of a boost we'll get them for these next couple of games. And for the Vancouver Whitecaps, it's still kind of a meh because the Whitecaps, even though they started to kind of figure out the goals scoring thing, there's been times where they have looked a little bit lackluster, especially on the road. So still kind of a meh to determine for them. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it. Again, looking at all these teams that have struggled in the early part of the season, and even kind of talk about whether or not this early season struggle does that means that they're probably going to miss the playoffs or not, or they're going to make it to the playoffs. And again, we still have a long season to go. We're still only a quarter into the season. A lot can change in a span of an MLS season, and teams are going to go through the ebbs and flows. And unfortunately, for a lot of these teams, they're definitely in the ebbs right now and having problems in terms of coming out of the gate. But let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.